What up, what up? Welcome back. We are live with another Money Moves episode. Hope everybody's having a great week. Mr. Breedwell, how we doing, brother?
Wonderful. I learned a lot about furniture this weekend.
You were out in Vegas at a National Furniture Expo?
Yeah, man. There was 3 buildings.
Like just massive warehouses, right?
There were 14 stories.
Wow.
And they were like, it was like full blown. It was like every store was like the size of an IKEA. It was unbelievable. It was at the World Marketplace in Vegas. If you were there, shout out to you. Hope you had a good time.
You know there was nobody there.
Who knows? You never know who listens to this.
Nobody's going to fucking furniture expos unless their wife is dragging them like yours did.
You know who was there? There was a ton of big real estate investors that buy
for hotels
and apartment complexes.
Multifamilies,
Yep, that were oh my gosh, I've never seen. There was the Serta mattress place. Oh, you could get like a Serta mattress for like $96, but you had to buy 100 of them.
Yeah.
So that's like
scale.
Exactly. So it was interesting to see. We definitely are getting ripped off at the
one of the biggest markups in business models is furniture.
300 to 400%.
Yeah.
That's the average markup.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, if you didn't tune in for Furniture Talk, we got some updates for you on some real estate stocks. Big pullback yesterday. Did we recover? We'll talk about that. Nvidia having a massive drop. Did they recover? We've got rate cut information coming out this week. What is the Fed going to do? I know Mr. Trump is definitely looking to put some downward pressure on those rates. Will we see that this week, or is that going to be waiting for a future rate cut? We've also got some lot of stuff going fast and furious on the political front with policies, executive orders, executive actions. We got some big cabinet hearings going down this week.
It's going to be a marvelous time to be an American.
Doge has some pretty insane findings that we'll dive into today as well.
I like what they're even going after the little stuff. They're like, hey, we saved $1.5 million here.
If you're not following Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, on X, they're pretty much posting everything, which, again, I said this from when they announced it. I was like, the transparency piece of it, I think, is so important right now. When people are trying to do backdoor deals and handshakes and sign shit when nobody can see it and spend money here. I even saw, why did Trump easily send the Corps of Engineers out to rebuild the bridges and the roads and the cities out to North Carolina, and they were able to do it so easily? Why were we not doing that under the Biden administration and just leaving these people hanging and still sending billions of dollars overseas in comparison to their $750 or whatever $700 check that they got? And somebody said it is not as easy to money launder through North Carolina as it is through foreign countries and wars. So
same with California. They even got water flowing.
Trump sent the military in yesterday.
Yeah, redirected in California. So, yeah,
there's some stuff going on the federal level that I'm fired up about.
Same.
Doge being one. We'll talk about that. I got some real examples for you guys today. And again, these are all things that are going to positively impact us as Americans, as tax-paying citizens, our 100%. Businesses, keeping 100%. More money in our pocket that hopefully will get recirculated and infused back into the economy.
And this talk, too, not to bring up a whole other thing, but just another tangent that's out there, because there's a lot of changes going on right now. So it's going to be the environment for the next 6 months. Abolishing income tax at the federal level, really being tossed around a lot more than I thought. And
I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm very intrigued by the conversation.
I'm happy with anything in the middle. That's lower.
Totally.
So anything that can get rid of unnecessary taxes that we can push off onto some of our trading partners, unabashedly. That's what they do to us. That would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we've got some crypto news, single-family reports have come out, some data around the commercial distress in the commercial industry for real estate is starting to tick up. We'll touch on that a little bit. I think big news this week from a international level is that the CIA, I think it was, I forget what his name was. Why am I blanking on his name? It's the new guy that is in charge, noted that CIA now says that its intel showed that the COVID virus escaped from a lab in China. What it didn't say is that the CIA under the Biden administration broke the law in not releasing its analysis. I mean, you were literally called a conspiracy theorist if you didn't think it came from a bat in China in some village.
Or
The
like
fact
an
that
armadillo
it could have
looking
potentially been released and or accidentally or intentionally, you got censored, you got deplatformed, you got, I mean, it was, and now what many people suspected, felt like was off, and they were thinking it was more along this narrative track, were actually proven correct. And I think we're going to see over the next 6, 12, really just through this administration, a lot of skeletons in the closet under the Biden administration, and specifically just the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and I think that sounded a lot more wild in them until people found out, like, oh yeah, and we have biolabs in Ukraine, and we have biolabs in China, and we have them in these countries because they don't have some of the rules that we have, and so it's a way for us to go through this red tape a lot more smoothly because those countries can test things that we can't test due to FDA rules or regulations or laws that we have here in the United States. So I bought the original because it made sense to me, because if you see a wet market, it's like, oh yeah, they did a good job picking the most ratchet thing that they could, because that looks sketch. But yeah, leaking from a lab that was getting funded by U.S. government for many years. Mm-hmm. Dr. Fauci being implicated and involved in that, and that's why he received a pardon. So that's all sorts of stuff.
Which is crazy. That. I mean, imagine taking medical advice from a man who needs a legal pardon for the medical advice that he gave to the whole world. To me, that just tells, I mean, and no offense to anybody that was scared or concerned and just kind of leaned on what was being told to them, right? I mean, I can understand why. But if you were one of the people that were championing lockdowns and were championing forcing people to get these things, careers being ruined, financial stability being ruined, health, being able to say goodbye to, your grandparent who had to die alone in the hospital because you couldn't go and see them because of these things, right? If you were one of those people that was championing this, and now you are one of these people that because Trump or his potential selections and cabinet picks are now very concerned about this concentrated power or this person that is exposing things, you're the problem, flat out. I mean, I just think that you need to take a long look in the mirror to just reflect and say, hey, I was wrong. And those decisions had real significant consequences. Business being shut down, families being ripped apart, real life consequences. And I guess it's validating and vindicating in some way, and at the same time, it just fucking pisses me off. It pisses me off, and it just reminds me of just how much corruption there is on all sides. I'm not going to point to, but around this particular topic, it definitely, fell in the camp of a particular side of the aisle more than the other. Yeah. And it's very interesting and enlightening to see a lot of this stuff now starting to come out.
Yep, and there'll be no real retribution for anybody who held the line. That's why it sucks the most, is because it's still an echo chamber. For those things are still talked about like they're true, and it's weird. It's just overall weird. But the good news is, we're having a lot of progress with the current administration getting things done, following campaign promises. Fulfilling some of them, more to come. And I think people on both sides are seeing that, and the world's not burning down, everything's going smooth, nobody's hurt, maybe emotionally, but not physically. Deportations have started and are occurring in Mexico, in Colombia, and other countries. And so I just think that this is kind of like, the new, what's it called when you're the White House correspondence person, right?
Press secretary.
Thank you. Press secretary
She did her
was
first
talking.
one today.
Yeah, and I liked like a lot of her responses. She was saying, some reporter asked her something to the effect of, what do you say about, people that are here that haven't committed any violent crimes? And she essentially responded, well, if they're here illegally, they've committed a crime, so they're felons. So we want them out of our country. And I don't know the difference between this administration and the last, but this administration follows the rule of the law, and the rule of the law says if you're here illegally, you're in violation of the law, so you're a felon and a criminal, and you need to be out of the country. So I'm glad we're finally getting back to common sense.
Well,
easy to understand.
Speaking of common sense, there was Stephen A. Smith, who's actually done an insanely good job. He's really smart, by the way. He's brilliant in sports, and that's where his brand has been built. But he's kind of transcending his brand of just being a sports commentator into politics and talk show and all kinds of stuff. He's really smart, and he's really good at how he delivers his message. And what I like about him, he talks his shit, but when he's wrong, he's like, I was wrong. I was wrong.
Just like we are.
He was like,
that's what you're supposed to do.
I was wrong. I am somewhat embarrassed. I got tricked into voting for Kamala Harris, and here's why. Not saying everybody should be that way, that kind of thing. But he went on Bill Maher this week, and they were talking about kind of Democrats, and he's been a lifelong Democrat, and Republicans, and I thought he summed up how at least I have felt in this particular soundbite. Let's give it a listen.
Was impeached twice. He was convicted on 34 felony counts. And the American people still said he's closer to normal than what we see.
Exactly.
Left. That's what they're saying. He's closer to normal. Why? Because you talk about the transgender community, for example, and you're talking about issues that pertain to less than 1% of the population. The Democratic Party came across as if that was a priority more so than the other issues. And so he comes into office. Now you're talking about childbirth, citizenship, and what have you. He knows that's not going to pass the mustard, but he knows that he made that promise. So when he shows up week 1 on Capitol Hill and he says this is what we're going to do through an executive order, even though it's going to be shot down through the courts and what have you, he's saying, I kept my promise. A lot of other things that he's going to point to that he's going to try to do, I kept my promise. Then you turn around and you look at the left and you say, what promises did you keep? Now, you might know the answer to that. I'm certainly not questioning your knowledge about that at all. What I'm saying is what resonated with the voter. What voter out there can look at the Democratic Party at this moment in time and say, there's a voice for us, somebody that speaks for us, that goes up on Capitol Hill and fights the fights that we want them fighting on our behalf. They didn't do that. And that's why their behinds are home, and that man is back into the White House. And they want to sit up there and talk. You look at the networks right now, they're talking about him. Look at it. This is the latest. Look at him. Here he goes again. Well, you know what here he goes again means? He's doing what he said he was going to do. He promised you he was going to do these things. And he walked into office week 1, and that's exactly what he's doing. And he's saying, y'all do something about it. And when you try to do something about it, he's going to say, look at them now. Now they're concerned about these issues. Were they talking about that during the campaign? Hell no.
He's right.
I mean, so you want to talk about some of the things that he campaigned on and that he did. I mean, you go down the list of the executive actions, executive orders that he's been doing. He has been, that pen has been on fire.
Yeah. And they're pretty good ones. I agree with the majority of them.
I mean, there's a couple I don't fully understand that I'm still digging into. The healthcare one and like uncapping certain medication prices, insurance stuff. There's some that I'm hearing the left cry and kind of signal to these things, which of course they're always going to look for something.
It's deregulation, and the deregulation. Essentially, it's putting faith in competition in the market to drive prices down versus capping prices, and then they're just going to charge the highest price and just leave it there. There's no reason to compete anymore.
Yeah.
So it does work because there's no capped prices on a cheeseburger. Like there's no capped prices on beef. There's no capped prices on gas. People can, well, to an extent on gas, I think. But you can charge whatever you're going to charge, but the market will not purchase it. So if companies are going to be able to freely compete, you have to remove limits on the low side and the upside. It's a necessary evil. And then we have to rely on our companies to be wholesome, and that's hard. I can understand where people come from. The overall idea on corporate America is not too holy, but I do think that gives the opportunity for the good ones to shine, because people will know about it, and that forces change to the people who don't want to drive their prices down. That's supply and demand. You have to let it run free in order for it to work. You can't muster it and put it in this corner and say, okay, only do this to this extent. Well, the companies are going to say, okay, if we're only allowed to charge $250, well, we're going to split hairs on $245 and $246, but everybody's paying that.
Yeah.
Versus you can charge whatever you want. Well, maybe right now we need to drive up premium, so we're going to cut prices down to $100 for that. Now that person needs to respond, so now they have to cut their price. It's a snowball effect.
And it takes time, right? And
It
there's a
does.
lot of unwinding and rebuilding
And
of
I'm not
many
saying it's
things that have
perfect.
been decade or century old infrastructures, right? So again, I agree with you. You know, is the deportation plan going to be perfect?
No.
Is the healthcare reform plan? No. I mean, look at what Obamacare was. That was a massive overhaul of our entire healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about potentially trying to revise or, you know, change some of that stuff. These things aren't going to be perfect. There's always going to be stuff that people want to point at. To your supply and demand thing, have you noticed lately? I've noticed on X the last few days, everybody, their one argument is your man's in office now, and what is he doing to bring down the cost of groceries, right? As if like him getting in there day one, he's going to...
He has been in there for 3 weeks.
Correct. So, but as if he's going to, you know, change that overnight, right? And what people are seeing and feeling today is not Trump, by the
I
way.
would've
That
said-
is the past administration.
Why are you asking this way right now? Why weren't you asking that 5 weeks ago? If it's as easy as a stroke of a pen, where are you asking Biden to do it?
Correct. Well, what's
not.
interesting, right, is everyone's talking about inflation and costs not coming down and it's Trump's fault. What we're finding out is that, and we already saw the Biden administration doing some of these things on the way out of like, let's create some mess and some chaos on our way out the door. Oh, let's send a bunch of money over here on the way out the door. Let's do this on the way out the door. Well, one of the things that they knew was a really important piece was bringing down the cost of, you know, groceries, inflation, energy, whatever it may be, right? This was a little soundbite from today regarding eggs. Eggs being at an all-time high right now, and this is a conversation that unfolded.
Thanks, Caroline. Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration in the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage. So I will leave you with this point. This is an example of why it's so incredibly important that the Senate moves swiftly to confirm all of President Trump's nominees, including his nominee for the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, who is already speaking with...
So she goes on to kind of, but again, another example, right?
Yep.
Of like, it's very easy to manipulate things to fit a narrative when like you really start looking under the hood. There's more there, hence policy matters.
Yeah.
Leadership matters.
Yep. And we've been saying that the whole time. It's we don't always have to agree or 100% love the person, but policy is what drives the boat, and we got to make sure that keeps on a straight and narrow. And so far, the policy that's coming through sounds really good and looks like it's going to be very effective to the short term and to the long term.
I'm so fired up to see some stuff changing in California a little bit.
Me too.
Obviously, this last week, you know, and like I said last week, to his credit, if you've listened to the show, you know Gavin Newsom is one of my least favorite human beings on planet Earth. But to see Trump and Newsom working together and putting their little issues aside and saying we got to make this about the people.
He did leave him on the tarmac for 10 minutes. That was kind of
That was
hardcore.
good. Then he said those things, right? And then they did a roundtable. Did you see some of the press conference in the roundtable where Trump is?
Was the mayor at the roundtable?
She was at the. They took her mic away because he started getting after her when she started saying some dumb stuff. But there was a bunch of policymakers there. And again, going back to the party of common sense, let's get back to common sense. This was a funny little soundbite that I thought would be fun to listen to when it comes to, because yesterday to the military aid coming in, turning on the water, federal policies now, removing a lot of the red tape. You know, he went in and really pushed them to remove you have executive powers, Miss Mayor. Don't sit here and tell me it's going to be a week or 2 weeks. Like, let these people start rebuilding today.
Yep.
Right? Like, we are an innovative country, and when we want something to happen and we have the means to do it, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
But this was a funny little interaction between Trump and a Democratic policymaker around common sense.
Items which will prevent it or at least mitigate it from happening again. So you're going to see us proposing both of those.
Like water. Little
We're
things
gonna
like
do
water.
that for
You
them.
know, the party of common sense. See, we're the party of common sense. You're not. In all fairness.
Yes, sir.
We like water to put out fires. It's really quite efficient.
The funniest part is he's not even like having to tweet it anymore.
These
He just
memes-
literally, I've never seen it because he's like, he's doing these live conferences. He's like, now instead of you being able to hide it behind a keyboard, I'm going to do it straight like to your face and watch you have no immediate response because you'll be lying.
And I love that because, again, it's creating this dynamic of transparency that the American people are dying for. Dying for it.
Yeah, it's the greatest television show ever.
And man, are the ratings and the following, and it's all
Do
there.
you know what it
It's
kind of
being
reminds me of in a
validated
bad
real
and
time.
good way? Back to the Future when Biff is the big casino owner.
That's great.
And he's just kind of running the world, except that he's doing it with bad intentions. I think that Trump really does have good intentions. You know, he doesn't have the best way of going about stuff, kind of a bull in a china shop sometimes, but he really does want what's best for the American people, I believe.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that for sure. You know, some other common sense executive orders that took place this week. No DEI and transgender in the military.
Yeah, and Hegseth already came out and said, and don't even be trying to change the name to try to circumvent it. That's a no-go. Well, you change the name, we'll go after that name change. It's all going to be gone.
They're reinstating service members who decided not to take the jab with full benefits and back pay.
6,000 members, I think, have indicated that they want it.
Man, so happy for all of those people that one already sacrificed so much for our country and had it taken away because they didn't fall in line with
double
something.
sacrificed.
But man, and to get that vindication, I'm happy for a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an investment portfolio and wonder if your financial advisor is overcharging you? Is your money properly allocated where it should be based on what goals you're trying to achieve? If you're not 100% confident in these answers, then don't forget to take advantage of your free financial Xray by texting the word Xray to 844-447-1555. You will receive a full financial audit on your investment portfolio and get all the answers to your financial questions so that you can rest assured that your investing decisions are actually aligned with your best interests and the future that you're looking to build. Get started today by texting the word Xray to 844-447-1555.
We got water flowing back into California. I'm happy for us.
Oh, God, thank the Lord.
I did see something, you and I were going back and forth on this, that I thought was interesting, that a Republican House member introduced a resolution Thursday to amend the U.S. Constitution in order to allow President Donald Trump and any other future president to be elected to a third term in the White House.
As long as the terms are not served consecutively.
Oh, really? Was that it?
Mm-hmm. That's the kicker. I believe when I read it, don't hold me to this, but I'm going to tell you how I understood it. If you run 2 terms in a row, you're done.
You can't get a third.
But if you run 1 term don't get elected and then run again and get reelected, I believe you can then run for a third term. That's what it's saying. Essentially, if you do what Trump is doing right now, which is extremely hard, it's very rare that
what he did.
What he just did. So to be fair, even though people say, "Oh, he's just trying to make it so he can do that," well, sure, but yes, he did just do that. But that's very rare. It has last time it happened was the 1890s, to give people some context, I believe. So that I believe is the caveat, that it's not 3 terms consecutively; it's 3 unconsecutive terms. So that
I didn't see that.
What I believe the reason that gives a little bit more leeway is because there's obviously going to be time. So if you don't get if you did it 3 times, there'd be 2 presidents in between you. That's 8 years spread out over really a 12-year period. So it would be a long period of time that you would be stretched out to be a leader. I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I don't care if it passes or not. I think I told you exactly how I feel. We've amended the Constitution, added amendments. I mentioned women weren't allowed to vote. People of color used to not be allowed to vote. There's a lot of things that we've added and updated and changed because over time, society will change and things will need to be adjusted for that. The document serves as guardrails, right? So if that was voted on by both parties and it passed, awesome. I don't think that that's going to cause somebody to abuse their power abuse the White House for additional years of something people voted for.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's a nothing burger. I don't know if it'll catch ground.
I don't know if it will either.
I would be fine with it.
I'm not a fan of it. I don't think that. I know that if it was reversed and let's say Biden got in there and made this proposal, I know the people on the right side of the aisle would be losing their shit right now, as I know people on the left are losing their shit at the thought of it.
I would say the same thing.
But yeah, I think overall, right, people aren't as level-headed about it as maybe you would look at it and approach it.
I wouldn't want Biden to win said third term, but I would say the same thing.
Sure.
Like, I can feel personally about the current candidate, but like, if we remove all bias and just say, is a president having a non-consecutive third term, so doing like what Trump just did?
If it's a non-consecutive third term, I didn't read that part. So if that is, then that makes a little bit more sense to me.
Because you'd really have to earn it. I feel like you'd have to earn it back.
Well, and statistically, with it being as challenging as it is,
correct,
in historically to do that,
it's happened 2 times in the last 140 years.
That is interesting.
So, like, to me, what that affirms is it's just letting, because I think the point of that is, and I think everybody can agree to this, you get more done in an 8-year term because it takes about 2.5 years to get the wheels rolling.
Yeah.
And so that allows for this, okay, here we go. Oh, no, stop. We're going to go to, now we're switching back to the left. Oh, no, stop. Now we're going back. It can actually get something done.
Yeah.
And so, it wouldn't be perfect. We'd see, I guarantee you if that passes, I know who's running next year. And I damn well, if it does a good job, I know who to get reelected, one of our oldest presidents ever. But yeah, I hear your point because, I would agree Trump would be old.
Yeah, 100%.
Would he be sharp?
Who knows?
I'll tell you what. Time will tell.
Yeah.
Keep drinking Diet Cokes and eating your McDonald's.
Rips down. McDonald's and Diet Cokes. Well, we've got some big cabinet hearings this week. Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, RFK,
big
kind
ones.
Of taking the spotlight of those.
They're all huge. They're all.
You've got health, national security, and intelligence agencies.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's
and
massive.
it would be
and
a massive
Justice,
paradigm shift inside those departments.
Yeah, when you're trying to break free of decade or centuries old organizations that now are starting to show and be exposed for corruption and negligence, that's gonna be a tough stream to swim up. And yet, I think at least most people feel like these individuals are a good fit to swim upstream.
I would
but
say
there
that
are
I like
some
them.
very powerful and wealthy and resourced groups and individuals that do not want to see those people get in there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. Speaking of negligence and corruption, Doge, as I mentioned, is on X, Department of Government Efficiency. If you just pull up, Tone, the screen here, I mean, the amount of work that they're going through, and I mean, we're talking billions of dollars already saved in waste. I mean, you've got, let's just go down this list real quick. We've got $145 million in federal savings due to cancellations of 16 DEI contracts by Department of Labor, Transportation, Ag. We've got in the first 80 hours, approximately $420 million of current and pending contracts have been canceled. 2 leases have also been canceled. $784 million in taxpayer dollars for a new U.S. embassy in South Sudan. I mean, if you just go down their page and see a lot of the stuff that they're doing, it's pretty cool to see how they're diving in, what they're uncovering, the shifts that they're making. And a lot of this stuff, I'm not like, oh my God, no, we need that. There's not been one thing that's caught my attention that I'm like, man, we really need $45 million in DEI scholarships to Burma. That's helping me and my family. We need $520 million for consultant-driven ESG scores and investments in Africa. Oh yeah, that's really helping the American people.
$1.5 billion for vacant building renovation.
$1.2 billion in awards to an undisclosed recipient. I mean, this is wild, right? I mean, these are the things that we are working for the government for a portion of our year, given our hard-earned tax dollars, and they're spending on this stuff. And you're telling me we have an insane debt problem that is, not going away. We seem to be paying more and more taxes every single year, going towards things that really don't impact us, our, families, our communities, our businesses. So I'm excited to see Doge really diving in. And, I mean, if you want to know how crazy it is, there was a little video that a news station did that pulled up some of the funding that was, and this is already money that's spent. We can't get it back. They can't cut it. It's not going to be on the chopping block. It's money that already was spent according to our government. Let's take a look at what some of these findings were.
Lists $1 trillion of taxpayer money spent on some truly bizarre pet projects, like $10,000 that was given to the Bearded Ladies Cabaret to fund ice skating shows about climate change. $32,000 was spent on breakdancing. Nearly $500,000 was spent to determine if lonely rats seek out cocaine more than happy rats. Another $2 million was paid for Paraguayan border security, because who needs a secure U.S. border anyway? $12 million to fund a pickleball complex in Las Vegas. $20 million to air a Sesame Street spinoff about inclusion and mutual respect, not here in the U.S., but in Iraq. And $10 billion on maintaining, leasing, and furnishing almost entirely empty buildings. Ghost towns on your dime. List.
So that's just an example, right? We're talking billions of dollars just in that little 30-second soundbite. So exciting to see what they're going to be doing there. We talked about Stephen A. Smith before we move on, and we just get off the political piece here. Did you see you follow Pat Bet David and Valuetainment at all, and some of the stuff that they do?
They come up in my feed. I don't know if I follow them.
So podcasting wise, they put out great content. They interview a lot of guys like Joe Rogan. They're great. They're definitely, I would say, conservative or middle leaning. But one of the guys, I don't know if he's Pat Bet David's like brother-in-law or nephew, or he's just a longtime employee and friend, but he's hilarious and he does a lot of their skits. And this was, if you've watched Gavin Newsom give interviews, talk, not answer questions, do what he does best as a politician, this is going to get you going. Let's give it a listen.
Newsom, wildfires have destroyed millions of acres of the state, displaced countless amounts of family. Do you take responsibility for any of this, and is there anything more you think you could have done?
Not really. I think these fires were very devastating. I think the full scope of what actually has happened, we're not there yet. Okay, these people's Houses are just destroyed. People are suffering. People are sad. But we're Californians. We're going to push through. We're going to push through. And where we're going, the vision is 10 times bigger than anybody else can even imagine.
Former President Trump has recently criticized your leadership, saying that you failed California. What's your response to him, and what does the future of California look like?
To be honest with you, I try to block that rhetoric, because the words that come out of his mouth, all the words out of his lips, they don't mean anything to me. He needs to use these more, because the future of California is bright. It's so bright. When you really try to look at it, I mean, really, really look at how bright it is, you're going to need shades to live in California 24 hours a day.
Critics are saying that you're all hand gestures and no action. What's your response to that?
I think people are wrong. Okay, they need to wake up. I speak with passion. I speak with fire, no pun intended. And I feel if I use my hands a lot, people won't be focused on the lies that are coming out of my mouth, because I lie a lot. So I want to distract them with my hands.
Interesting.
So good.
I did see that. I didn't watch that one,
Oh,
but I did see it.
That guy's so funny. They always do like funny little political skits and on all different kinds of topics. But
Benny Johnson show does the animated one characters. If you've never seen that one, and that is pretty hilarious. The Benny Johnson show. It's unbelievable.
So good.
It's a little bit. I don't know if it's a little bit. I don't want to say racy, because that's actually what it is. Sometimes it dances a little bit on that side, but some of the stuff they talk.
Edgy.
Yes, they did one on Gavin Newsom, and he's just sitting in his office playing the cup game, and he's like, I don't know what they want me to do. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Well, let's shift over to the market. Big, would you call it a pullback, correction, dip?
Sell-off. Yeah.
So we saw Nvidia losing $590 billion in market cap in one day. DeepSeek AI, which is a Chinese, kind of just came out of nowhere competitor to OpenAI.
And ChatGPT. And all that stuff, yeah.
Came in, did essentially the same thing as ChatGPT, if not better, for a fraction of the cost.
So they say.
More energy efficient. What's interesting is, so before we dive into that, the market had a sell-off because of that. Like,
correct.
With AI being as, profound and pronounced as it's been in the market, when that came out and seeing how efficient and effective from an energy and a financial perspective to essentially get the same outcome, there was a major sell-off. And that, to me, seemed like a pretty big threat to a lot of venture capital firms and companies that have invested and somewhat inflated the values of a lot of these AI and tech stocks. And was that the reasoning or the catalyst, DeepSeek AI, for that big sell-off and pullback?
Yeah, it was. But I think when I was messaging you, I had mentioned that it was on kind of not accurate data and probably false information.
Expand on that a little bit.
Their claim that just the claims that they're making, what they did for the amount of money that they did it for, doesn't really pencil out. And second to that, they're kind of making the point that, hey, we kind of did this all without Nvidia GPUs or chips or anything. But in reality, people in the space that know what they're talking about, including even like Elon Musk and Nvidia, has also made a statement essentially saying that what they did wasn't anything, and that's not, that there really shouldn't have been a crazy reaction. They have to be using Nvidia GPUs and chips, and probably not like a few of them, probably tens of thousands of them.
Well, supposedly it says that DeepSeek has 50,000 Nvidia H100 chips.
We have a export ban on that specific chip to that country, and they would expose China to financial sanctions by revealing that they had access or had circumvented those sanctions.
They found a way to get them in the country, get them working with DeepSeek, which in my opinion would be more bullish for Nvidia versus the decline and pullback and the sell-off that we saw.
It would be, but people believe what they're saying, that, oh no, we did this completely different. AMD just came out and said that they're going to integrate the DeepSeek into their new processing chips, which I don't think is a great move. But
they've been looking for some competitor to pull into their ecosystem.
Yeah, and AMD is going to be low hanging fruit there. I think that it's any improvement in that area is good for the overall health of the AI marketplace.
It's more competition.
Yeah, but what they're saying is, just to put it in layman's terms, is they lied. They overinflated what they did and how they did it, and left out a key part of that, was that they're using Nvidia GPUs and that they're required to do what they did. And so the opposite should have likely happened. So
did you buy the dip is the question.
Yeah, I was even talking to people saying, as a joke, back the truck up.
Yeah.
But just like selling Nvidia in 2020, this is kind of a similar time where people panic sold off. That's exactly what happened. And Nvidia's up almost 9% today. So people that bought.
So they've recovered a decent amount.
Almost all of it, yeah.
Wow.
All in one day. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the week we're back to par value, if not more.
Any other reflections on where the market's at right now?
It looks awesome. Everything looks good. I would be, man, if I was an investor, I would be, as always, it's always a good time to put money in the market to work in quality investments. But if you had money on the sidelines and you are worried, it's time to deploy it. I'm taking a lot of my clients' monies that were in money market accounts. For older investors buying bonds, with some credit exposures. I was explaining to you some commercial real estate exposure that's been doing pretty good as far as a recovery area. So good upside there. But we're getting out of money market funds. There's just too much potential. Rates are going to come down. They're going to continue to come down.
Talk about that. We've got a rate cut announcement or a rate announcement this week from FOMC. What are we expecting? We've seen a lot of pressure from Trump verbally and publicly that rates need to come down, and they need to come down now.
They do.
What is Papa Powell going to do as a result of that pressure?
But the Fed funds rate is not rates. They're going to pause, I believe. They're going to stay between 4.25 and 4.5.
10-year is down to
4.56, I think, again.
And you said to me that you think it's peaked out?
Yeah, we think that little spike up again, because it tested kind of its resistance and it bounced right off of it. So we think that rates have kind of peaked out and are likely going to start trending down over the medium and long term, hoping that we can be from a Fed level somewhere between 3.5 and 3.75 on the Fed's rate by the end of the year. That'll be 2 to 3 more cuts.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I just don't think we're going to get more than 2 or 3 cuts this year. 2 to 4 is still on the table, but probably going to get 2.
I mean, from that 10-year and that Fed funds rate, that is a big deal for if you're a real estate investor.
Yeah, 3.75 Fed rate would probably get us about a 3.8 to 4.1 10-year, and that's a good, healthy. That's like plenty of juice, so banks are profitable, but enough meat left on the bone to where there's spread to be derived from opportunities in the marketplace for real estate investors on single family and on the commercial side.
Well, speaking of the commercial real estate market, we got some delinquency rates for commercial properties from fourth quarter data to close out 2024. And I'll just read through some of this, kind of highlighting some of the key components. But essentially what I'm getting at is we're starting to see some of that distress mount up as we head into 2025. Delinquency rates for commercial properties did increase in the fourth quarter, not for all asset types, for the obvious ones. The share of loans that were delinquent, and mind you, this data set is participants reporting on $2.5 trillion worth of loans, and that is representing about 52% of the total $4.7 trillion in commercial and multifamily mortgage debt that is outstanding. So $4.7 trillion in commercial real estate loans that are outstanding. So the share of the loans that were delinquent increased for some property types, particularly office, which we know has kind of hit an all-time high in vacancy. We've got some lodging in there, some retail, and some multifamily. Delinquencies decreased for industrial. Among capital sources, CMBS loan delinquency rates saw the highest levels but were flat during the quarter. 5.3% of those loan balances were 30 days or more delinquent, up from 4.8%. Let's see. And that's really the gist of at least the delinquency. But I do think that seeing a little bit of an uptick in some of those asset classes, mainly on, either debt maturing and resetting to interest rates that now are unsustainable for some of these operators. That's where I think we're going to continue to see some of that domino and snowball effect. We also have seen a little bit of a shift, interestingly. Now, data centers, energy, AI, obviously us being the world leader in artificial intelligence and wanting to continue on that path. We're going to need to continue to expand our energy infrastructure to support those AI requirements and needs, which is going to tie into commercial real estate in some capacity. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg said that he wants to spend $60 billion on data centers just this year in 2025. Reports have emerged that Meta will pour at least $60 billion into building data centers in the U.S., up from $38 billion to $40 billion the company spent last year. News of Zuck's investment comes 2 weeks after President Trump announced Dubai-based Damaco officials.
I was trying to say that too myself.
Plans to pump at least $20 billion into data centers. Meta move follow other tech titans like Amazon, OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank.
Yeah.
So again, this whole data center, commercial real estate, AI connection, I think is going to be definitely something that will be a trend that continues going forward. And if you just take a look at pulling this up on the screen, Tone, the world has 11,800 data centers. And as you can see, the U.S. overwhelmingly is, taking the lion's share of that pie chart. We have 5,381 of those 11,000. So almost half of what's there, 46% of the world's data centers here in the U.S., and with the amount of investment and infrastructure that I think is going to continue to pour into this space, we're overwhelmingly going to be the category king for AI and data center infrastructure. So I think that's a great thing across the board for the real estate industry, for AI business, for Americans and the citizens of us continuing to be the world power of artificial intelligence and attracting the best.
Crypto.
All of it.
Yep.
All of it.
It all
There's
relies
so
on
many
that.
tentacles off of this one, octopus.
And data, people forget data centers have to have backup data centers. If those so it all it compounds. There's all this, people are afraid of AI, but they don't realize it takes away one job but create two more almost.
Yes, I saw an interesting thread yesterday. There was a guy that made a post saying that he works with a data center developer, and they were in contract on a pretty significant amount of development square footage for data centers. And he canceled over 50% of his contracts yesterday after DeepSeek AI came out. For the reason being that he said because it showed how much more energy efficient and cost effective it could be, that the infrastructure and requirements for that are going to, over time, start to diminish or shrink.
Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely.
So I thought that was interesting, but to get that bearish that quickly was interesting. Case-Shiller National House Price Index is up 3.8% year over year in November, which is actually somewhat of,
It's a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So still a very challenging real estate market to be in. But again, we'll continue to track data as it rolls out. This was something that I wanted to share as we wrapped up today. I've been seeing and hearing, celebrities and people crying about America and leaving the country and complaining about all these things. And there was a video that I came across yesterday that I thought had just a great soundbite. And this was a serviceman in his Humvee out on service, and he had a PSA for all Americans who hate America. Let's listen in.
Hey, I don't know who need to hear this. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of people be talking shit about America. Hey, if you don't like America, go to another country, bitch. I love this country. I'll protect this bitch. Hey, I don't...
Plain and simple.
And that's it. That was it.
I love this country.
Man, I feel the same way. I love this country. I love everybody that's in it. And all the people that, have some little piece of DNA in what has made this country so great, past, present, and what's going to make it continue to be great in the future. And yet getting back to some common sense, getting back to some exciting things from an economic perspective.
I know, thank God.
I'm really fired up. So, I am hoping that you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to leave a 5-star review and shoot us a text at 844-447-1555. Questions, topics, thoughts, opinions around the content that we're sharing. We want to include some of these inputs and ideas going forward. So, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys in next week's episode.
Cheers, y'all.
Well, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you got any value from today's show, all I ask is that you take 60 seconds, leave a review on whatever podcasting platform you enjoy listening to this content on, as well as share it with somebody that you think can get some value from it. Also, be sure to check out wiseinvestorvault.com. We have all kinds of great tools and resources, a ton of free downloads from checklists to spreadsheets, to trackers, you name it, everything in between to help you on your wealth building journey. That's at wiseinvestorvault.com. If you're also an accredited investor and you're not on my deals list and you want to be aware of the different investing opportunities that I have access to or that I am personally investing in myself, be sure to text the word deals to 844-447-1555. As always, if you want to get your free financial Xray from Ryan and his team to dig through your investment portfolio, you can text the word Xray to 844-447-1555. All of those are complimentary and free completely for our Millionaire Mindcast family. And as always, don't forget to engage on social media. Shoot me a follow, shoot me a text. We're really trying to grow the social media following right now to impact and help more people on their financial freedom journey. And I would love to connect with you as well. Until next episode, keep investing in yourself and your wealth on your march to $1 million and beyond. Cheers.